mean, they rang me. They must have rang me for a reason. And the fact of the matter is, I like to believe that contract will be here soon. But what I was being told and how it's going to be delivered by him, that it's going to be in tomorrow, which we've been hearing every day for God knows how long, and I think Bob Aaron's pretty exasperated about that. It hasn't come in yet, so we'll see. And like this week is the deadline for it. This is the deadline. Tyson wants to fight, he wants to get out, and we'll get him out as soon as we can. And if it's
So is this the weekend, the deadline in your eyes?
well, how much longer are we going to go on with this? You know, we're told something's going to be here virtually. Well, look, you've seen Bob Aaron's interview. He said what he's got to say. I don't want to keep going on about it. At the end of the day, is I am led to believe, not from Matchroom, but from the principle that we will be receiving some.
What's good, family? So mash the like button and subscribe. So Frank Fish Eyes Warren has given us an update, an unlucky update for those of you, man, who want to see this fight. He's now saying Eddie Hearn has until the weekend, until the end of the week, to get this locked up. Otherwise, him, Bob Arum, and Tyson Fury himself will be moving on to the Wilder trilogy. Wow. Now, I know that we've been going back and forth for weeks now. Oh, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on. I'm just, to be honest with you, I know it's probably not best for the sport, but me personally, I just want it to end now. If it's not going to be on, let's get it done this weekend. I'm over it at this point. I really am. I'm completely over it. For this to drag on for more weeks, I'm done with it. I don't want it to drag on. Ideally, I'd like Fury at the weekend to say, yeah, we're done, we're moving on. Because this, 10 days, a week, it's on, I can't be dealing with it myself. And the way that, it's one thing, yeah, if Fury's camp were quiet and or positive, I can work with that. Do you know what I'm saying? If they weren't saying much and it was just taking time, we wouldn't be none the wiser. But the fact that every single day they're coming out, it's not going to happen. Bob Arum, in fact, in the last 24 hours as well, Bob Arum saying, if I was to bet if this fight happens now, I'd say no. And really, we're going to turn the Deontay Wilder mediation into a negotiation. That's what Bob Arum's latest is. All in the video trying to get the Deontay Wilder fight done. And again, like I told you, man, weeks ago, I said there was something fishy about this Tyson Fury cat. Because he came out a few weeks ago and said, Deontay Wilder, I'll fight. giving it all the Deontay Wilder line of things. Which at the time, everyone was scratching their head. Wilder? You just said, you're never going to fight Wilder. Wilder was disrespectful to your brand or whatever it was, to his religion or something like that. To his people. I'm not sure how that was, but either way, that's what Fury said. Fury said, I'm not fighting Wilder ever because he's been disrespectful to my people. And now, a week after that, or a few weeks after him saying that, it's not going to happen, he's then saying, never know, I might just drag Wilder in there again. And then we've got Bob Arum saying, we're going to turn the mediation into a negotiation. Oh, and by the way, we've got Fish Eyes, Frank Warren saying, I'm giving Eddie Hearn until the end of the week because we can't afford for Fury to be inactive. Now, what I find interesting about the whole inactive thing is that, like I just said, if Fury's team were being positive and trying to get this fight done, inactive doesn't come into it. Because if this fight's going to happen in August, how does that affect your inactivity? Or how does that affect your activity? The only way activity is a problem is if you think this will drag on and not get done. Because if Fish Eyes is confident about being able to get Fury another fight by August, why not let that be the AJ fight? Why not commit yourselves to the AJ fight and get it done? Clearly, me and a lot of the fans must be missing something here. And it's been, to be honest, since this negotiation began, Fury's team have consistently, they've had some problems no one else can understand. It's like they know something we don't, in as much as they know there's some sort of structural problem why this fight can't get done. All we've heard from them over the last 6 months has been, it can't happen, it won't happen. It's too much. It's too hard to do. Not enough money. But yet they haven't actually nailed down what's too hard to do. Because from Eddie Hearn's point of view, yes, allegedly Eddie Hearn's a bit late on the contract and stuff, but it's late. Eddie Hearn's not saying we haven't got any offers. In fact, Fish Eyes himself came out and said, "Yeah, I've just had a brand new offer. I've even got an offer." Fish Eyes came out and said he has an extra offer. So what's he? I don't get what. For him to cancel or for him to threaten the negotiation at this point, and your excuse is, oh well, we can't afford Fury to be inactive. What? We're not at that stage now. Fair enough, yeah. If it was, I don't know, let's say we're weeks away from the date and it's still not done or whatever, I get it. But you can't. You're not going to be able to bring in. Fury's still not going to be fighting before the proposed date anyway. The proposed date is something in August. Even if you scrap the AJ fight now, which is, by the way, so far into negotiations, you're still not going to be able to get a fight in before that fight would be anyway. Let's say you started negotiating with Wilder on Monday. That's going to take time. And from what I'm hearing, well, who knows? Eddie Hearn, I'd like to think it's done within the week, but you know what? I'm tired of all this. I really am. And like I said, at this point, I just want Fish Eyes, Team Fury to come out. If they don't want it, you don't want it. And I think part of me, and I've been saying this for a long time, part of me thinks, and John Fury really gave it away, but ultimately, I've been saying over the last few months that I believe Team Fury, the whole reason, do you remember when Fury did the countdown? And he was saying, 2 days to go and I'm cancelling the fight. And I said, I reckon the reason, because obviously he gave the countdown, and then when the countdown expired, he said, oh, well, I'm going to give the extension. And John Fury came out and said, oh, well, look, the fact that my son's given them the extension proves we really want the fight. And I said, listen, it sounds to me like these cats have been thinking way too much, meaning they've got some sort of plan. Meaning they're trying to convince the fans they want it without actually locking it in, if that makes sense. And sitting here now, that looks to be the case. It feels to me as if Team Fury have gone along with this negotiation just to make it seem like they want to do it. And when it falls through, they'll say, well, look, we gave Eddie Hearn 5 months and we just couldn't get it done. It was too hard to do in the current environment. And I'm afraid to say, but I haven't heard much to the contrary. And now what makes me laugh is we've had Fury come out, and Fury's giving it the big one on the blower, talking a big game, giving it all the bodybuilder and whatnot. That's not a good sign to me either. Mr. Silent, Mr. Depressed, Mr. Mentally Tired, all of a sudden found a whole load of energy. Where's he found that energy, you ask? I'll tell you where he's found it. He's found it in knowing he ain't got to fight AJ. Imagine the boost. You've been depressed and mentally exhausted by the thought of having to go toe-to-toe with AJ over the last 5 months, and then today you find out from your team that you're going to move on and scrap AJ and start fighting Wilder. Yeah, you best believe I'll be on there ranting and raving on Instagram too, wouldn't you? Think about it. He ain't been saying nothing. He ain't been really issuing no smoke over these last 5 months. Really, he's been quiet. He's been saying he's tired. He's been saying he ain't training. Mr. Found the energy is because it's looking like it ain't going to happen now. Having said that though, I have to play devil's advocate to my own position. Is it a possibility that genuinely Team Fury are just tired of Eddie Hearn taking long? And I have to admit, and it's not even Eddie Hearn's fault. Eddie Hearn's come out and basically said that it's the Saudis. But what? I don't understand. What do you mean it's the Saudis? What is there to stall? Is the money there or not? I mean, that's, again, like I said, the reason I have to do this and play devil's advocate is because maybe Fish Eyes and Bob Arum and Team Fury are right. Team Fury are basically saying they can't get them. There ain't no money there. They can't get the money. And one thing we know about money is always, or in business at least, money is always correlated with time. The minute people start stalling, the minute things start taking a lot of time, usually it means they're having problems with money. That's the number one rule in business, more or less. Not number one, but you know what I'm saying? If you're in any sort of business negotiation and things start awkwardly taking a lot of time, usually it's because my man ain't got the funds there, or there's some sort of in it. Because when the funds are up there and it's all locked in, things just go smoothly. The minute things start getting delayed and my man says, oh well, in 3 days it'll clear, and then the check don't clear, and oh well, I'll put another one in the post for you. And you're thinking, why'd you put it in the post? I only live down the road from you. Drop it from people. But my point is, people try and find little ways to long things out. You could have bank transferred me. Oh no, I put it in the post and it's in the. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's a check and it's in the post. All that kind of stuff. It's looking a little bit like it might be one of them ones. Or, like I proposed, it could be Eddie Hearn is playing some long game where he's trying to punk Sky and get the DAZN thing locked in. But that's, at this point, Eddie Hearn, if that is his plan, if that was his plan, to long the negotiation out until he can give the rights fully to DAZN, he may end up playing himself, because if Fish Eyes and Frank Warren and Team Fury walk away, there won't be no deal, and it'll be a bit of a wow one. Anyway, you've heard from Frank. Frank said weekend is the deadline. I just hope they stick to it. That's all I care about at this point. I couldn't care less, truth be known. I'm already interested. I'm like, you man who follow my channel religiously will know that I'm more interested in JP. Truth be known, I am, because the fights get done. I'm interested. He comes to fight. All this in the media for 6 months. What is that? What is negotiating for a fight for 6 months? What is that? I've never heard of such an abomination in my life. Genuinely. Even when you look at Mayweather Pacquiao didn't go on for 6 months. And yes, I guess it did over years. But what I'm saying is, this has been a concentrated negotiation where allegedly 2 men have wanted to fight. And I mean, I'm not being funny here. In terms of how the odds are looking, the fact that we found out the other day, Eddie Hearn leaked the fact that it's only going to be a 1-fight deal anyway. I mean, it's just looking sloppy at this point. Oh, well, we can only... It was meant to be... Like, that 28... The initial agreement was signed as a 2-fight deal. Yeah? Initial agreement was a 2-fight deal. Now we hear it's a 1-fight deal. That's not a little thing to change. And in my mind, from what I'm hearing is, it's to do with the Saudis. The Saudis... And this is another indication that potentially the Saudis are having money troubles. Not money troubles. Obviously, they got bank, but ultimately, the Saudis aren't really looking to put the money up for 2 fights. That's what it comes down to. Which also leads into the whole money problem. You can't get the money there. And that's why it changed to a number 1 fight. And even if you listen to Eddie Hearn's language, Eddie Hearn said, well, the thing is, in terms of Rob McCracken and the Olympics, Eddie Hearn's now said, well, you know what? If it falls on... Eddie Hearn's now said, the host is what's important. Whatever date the host gives us, we've got to go on. Which, when you think about it, usually, or more recently, someone like AJ, he normally determines his own dates. So the minute we start hearing, oh, well, we've got to now pander to the host, and we can't now change the date because we don't want to... We're basically in the passenger seat, and the host is driving things. That's another indication that Eddie Hearn hasn't got much wiggle room here, and that potentially his negotiation power is weakened. Because usually they'd say, well, you know what, we're AJ, we're the A side, and we'll just find another host. But the fact they can't do that, and the fact they're being held to task on the date, and the fact they've lost one of the fights, and the Saudi aren't prepared to put up a 2-fight deal, all of these things scream that we're not in a favourable position, negotiation-wise, in terms of finding a host. Not in a good position, and that does imply there are money problems, bottom line. Because if there weren't money problems, they'd book the 2-fight deal, no problem. The fact it's only a 1-fight, and it's not like it's a small fight either. Fair enough, yeah. If it was AJ versus some bum, I can understand, but this kind of fight, and Saudi don't want to own... You'd think people would be chomping at the bit to lock this fight in. Do you know what I mean? You'd think people would be chomping at the bit to lock in a double fight. The fact they're only willing to risk 1 fight just goes to show the state of the environment. So, like I said, I've spent the last 5 minutes, in a way, debunking my own arguments. I started this video off saying, well, Frank's lying about the money not being there and the environment, but really, when you look at the details more specifically, he may be right. The environment, there's too many provable factors, not the he said, she said. The provable factors are the environment isn't looking favourable right now. They've been given a date they can't move. They've lost a fight, only a 1-fight deal. And then, by the way, even with the lost fight, even with the fixed date. They still can't get it locked down. It's sounding not good right now, 100%. So maybe, maybe Fish Eyes and Team Fury are right. Maybe it is just too difficult to do. And then finally, I'll end it here, but another factor implying it really may be difficult is we know Eddie, or in my opinion at least, Eddie Hearn is a shrewd and efficient businessman. So the minute we hear that he's been delaying and he's been missing deadlines, initially I thought it might be a strategy by Hearns, but more likely now, genuinely, the Saudis or the hosts or whoever the other party are, they're clearly lagging. It's not Eddie Hearn's incompetencies. That's not how he works. People are consistent normally, and when someone who's been very consistent for years starts missing dates and whatnot, that's a lot more likely the other party. So there's the final factor implying Saudis ain't really too confident. They ain't chomping at the bit to get it done. Because if they were, like, in an ideal world, yeah, they'd a bit Eddie Hearn's. How it should be working is people should be biting Eddie Hearn's hand off to get this 2-fight deal locked in. The fact we've lost a fight, the fact we can't pick the date we want, the fact that not only all these factors, it's also taken months to do it. We can't even get them to commit to half of what we can't even get people to commit quickly to half of was initially on offer. Bottom line. So yeah, I think having worked it through now, I have to kind of agree with potentially what Team Fury is saying, really, based on the evidence we've got. Now I don't know behind the scenes, maybe it's all been debunked, but it's true. In business, when people start delaying, and when things start taking long, it's always 99% of the time it's to do with the money ain't there. Bottom line, people don't want to commit. And in fact, Frank Warren himself even said, we haven't received any binding contract yet. All of the contracts we've received have been subject to terms, which you can't really. I do agree with Frank on that one. You can't work on that. That's sending a non-binding contract is more or less what Deontay Wilder was trying to do with the $50 million. And Wilder rang Eddie Hearn up, or rang whoever up and said, "Oh man, I got $50 million in the bag," and told Eddie Hearn to sign it. You can't work with that. You need a binding contract, not all terms and conditions, and you can't sign something and then that's not how business works. No one's going to do that. So there's another factor which is not looking great. So yeah, Fish Eyes Team Fury say end of the week. I hope they stand by that. But on Monday, if Eddie Hearn ain't delivered, just scrap it off. Call it a day, and let's get done with it. Get Fury and Wilder on, and we'll move on to Usyk. Is it ideal? No, but I'm just tired of this now. I really am. I'm sick of it, and I'm over it. If we can't get a host to do it, whatever, move on. Because clearly, there's too many other factors involved. People want too much money. Whatever else. Fine. Let's not do it then. Just don't talk about it. From now on, I don't even want to mention it. If it's on, it's on. Otherwise, crack on with another bum.